All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Serving Nerve, the show where I talk to you about whatever I want, the restaurant industry, being a server. I've also had other jobs during this time, but I have to say, the one thing that I'm trying to do now is break out of the industry. I'm kind of tired of it, and I might end up having to go back for whatever reasons, or I might never get to leave, but I've been thinking about that lately. The other thing I want to talk today about, as I disjointedly construct my sentences, is intercourse relations, which I know sounds dramatic. I know it sounds dramatic, all right? I hear you. I hear you, even though I can't hear you because this is the internet where it's just a thought bubble that I throw on there, and then you guys comment below or make response videos talking about how much of a screw up I am. Today, I kind of want to talk about it because, it's been playing on my mind lately. A lot of people that I talk to throughout my life usually do have some kind of conversation pertaining to intercourse, romance, sex, whatever. And, I see things on the internet that are incredibly hypersexual, and even hypersexual individuals who say they aren't hypersexual. I don't know why I saw this, but it just kind of provoked this thought in my mind on the basis of hypersexuality. Because I saw some sort of response from Blair White for some reason when I was looking at all those videos from tipping, just tipping culture stuff. And I don't know what she was talking about. I don't know that much about Blair White. A little rundown is she's a trans YouTuber who's more on the conservative side of the internet. So I don't know exactly her entire belief system, but that's the breakdown. And I don't really get absorbed into that kind of commentary these days just because it is I don't mean to be rude, it's just not my thing. It's I don't really care about watching people like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, and I do enjoy every now and then an occasional Candace Owens just on the basis of motherhood more than anything else. But again, it's just too political for me, and I feel like it's so easy to just skirt the line and be political more than just human. And I feel like politics does tear us apart quite a lot. So I really don't want to promote tons of politics on my channel or individuals who have very political beliefs, especially since, that person that you're watching or that you're promoting could change their perspective anytime, go against your values, and then you have to denounce them in some capacity. So that's even worse because then it makes you seem like a flip flopper and a grifter. And that's on my concerned end more than them being the flip flopper. I would be the flip flopper, and I just don't want to do that, which is why I'm very particular about promoting people online and for why I promote them online, even though I'm a small channel and pretty much valueless in the eyes of society and in the scope of the internet. But that's just the point I want to make to you guys. I really don't want to just baselessly kind of go on about certain YouTubers and stuff. But the one thing about Blair White that she said, and this made me kind of laugh, was she kind of went on about being kind of asexual, and that's her right. She can say that. I don't know exactly what that would pertain to, but it's funny because I feel like, and this could be more my own bias or anything like that, so by all means point it out in the comments below, because I'm not trans, and I've not transitioned from being a man to a woman where you have to augment your body in some way to appeal to your mindset or your mentality or, the way that your brain works. And I have no disbelief that Blair is trans or anything like that. It's not to throw more weirdness into the pot. It's just on the basis of sexuality. I feel like it all kind of interlocks into one being, and it interlocks into one concept or an overall concept. And when I hear somebody who has talked about, now to be fair, Blair is not seemingly as hypersexual as some individuals I've seen online, trans or no. But the one thing that kind of sparked something in my mind was her saying, things about being, not super sexual and all this stuff. Well, the dressing and the makeup and all the looks are very much on the appeal to femininity, the appeal to female sexuality. And I could be ignorant, so do bypass that. I'm sorry, or point it out in the comments below where I'm going wrong with this line of logic, because I'm trying not to sound gatekeepy in the wake of asexuality, which I don't think I am. Ironically, in spite of my lack of sexual experience in life, I don't think I'm asexual. I could be, and I wouldn't know it. Or I could be gay, and I wouldn't know it. But I don't think I am. I think I'm just very, non-inclined for just intercourse. I think it's very boring, or I have not had the opportunities that I've wanted to execute for it, and therefore I've been disinterested in it. So, again, my perspective is a little bit on the contrast of, I'm not trans, I'm not very sexual, I live in a hypersexual world like anybody else if you perceive it as a hypersexual world. Although I think the internet really is a different world than just being out there in the world. When I'm in normal functioning reality in the public city streets, it's much less common that I run into somebody who perceives or, you know, stands out as hypersexual. But then when I'm on the internet, it's all the time. And that's the thing about the internet. If you look it up, you can find it. So I don't know. That's my perspective on the basis of hypersexuality. I think that we are in a very weird era where we're more accepting of all sexualities and stuff like that, which is not indecent. But we also are, now that we are so open with it, a lot of people talk more sexually than ever, which maybe is just because this is the only generation I've ever been born into. And I think that we are more hypersexual as a society than ever, particularly because we have things online like, naughty websites and OnlyFans and stuff like that. And I could be wrong again, but the one thing I've been thinking about has been on the basis of all of this, like, what is the threshold to be perceived as, like, weird when it comes to not having sex or being sexual or not being sexual or not being hypersexual, or what is the quality standard here? Because I know that we see it at times where we see that person is really out there, but what does it consist of? Is it like the showing of skin? Is it the body count? Is it, and listen, baby, my body count, it's not there. I probably brought down people's body counts before, I kid you not. The amounts of times where I've actually impaired people from having sex are probably higher than any amounts of intercourse or relations that I'm going to end up in my entire life. My body count is probably in the negatives by now. But it's kind of funny because on top of that, like, what do we base it on? I bet my body count also would be more on the basis of the deletion of people on the earth more so than the coagulation of, processed intercourse to increase a count. Which is not to say that I'm going to be some sort of psycho on YouTube talking about, mutilating and killing people. I'm just saying that my perception is quite particular where it's like, okay, where is the threshold? What is too much? What is enough? How much sex is too much? How much sex is enough? Is it when you say it is? Because personally, listen, I know I'm at the 0 count, all right? If this were like a video game, I would have no points. But I just don't understand exactly what we're looking for here to perceive things as hypersexual. Again, is it the showing of skin? Is it the, or asexual? Is it the non-showing of skin? Because, like, listen, if this is not, if Blair can be asexual or, come off as, and I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing in any way so that it's an inappropriate perception, but if Blair White, who has surrounded themselves with, some level of sexuality to perform a transition, and if Blair White is, maybe not sexual enough, what is the point of sexuality? Is that not sexual? Like, I genuinely have been thinking in my mind, what does it consist of that we're categorizing as sexual? Because if Blair White isn't particularly sexual, and if Blair White, and I guess this is more on the basis of identification, but, anyways, I'm sorry. Point I'm trying to make, though, I have these questions that are building up in my mind, because if Blair White identifies as somebody who has transitioned from male to female, and if Blair White also at the same time is saying that the world is too hypersexual and that, she's not very sexual, what does that make me? And what does that make people who literally have, like, no grasp of sexuality? Because at this point, I don't dress particularly feminine. I can if I want to. I don't wear makeup. And again, these things appeal to femininity more than just sexuality, but I'm kind of lumping it all together. So maybe that's where I'm going wrong with my perception, but even so, my body count is literally nothing. I have no perception of what even is the appropriate means of courtship anymore. I always think about the stereotypical you give them flowers or something, but I've given more men flowers than they've given me, which is probably, like, a terrible idea if I want to actually acquire a gentleman instead of a scumbag. But, like, the point I'm trying to make is there are all of these variables that are constantly having me question what my angle even would be if I were to approach somebody. Like, should I bang after the first date, the third date, after I get married, when I'm comfortable with them? Should I, like, endeavor for that? Should I find that there's a calculation, or should I just let it happen? Like, there are all these things that I've been thinking about because there's no real, like, composite, evolution of when we find that too much sexuality is too much, or too much identification with being hypersexual is too much. Like, we just kind of go and we hope that it works out. And then some people are, noted as hypersexual and others not so, And we don't even get into the topics of sex addiction. I don't even know what that consists of. Is it the desire for humanity, for human touch, for companionship? Is it the desire just to get off? Like, there are so many things that confuse the hell out of me, because at the end of the day, I'm just sitting here going like, with my little computer desk and my little broken Gorilla Glued Greyhound coffee mug and my little microphone and all my little projects and like my little swords and stuff, like I'm 12, and I'm sitting here thinking about, like, God, why do people have sex? What's the point? And not even on the basis of companionship, because that is my ultimate goal at the end of the day, is if I had a companion who I was comfortable with and actually felt like I could be intimate with, I have no quarrels with having sex. But then at the end of the day, most people I talk to, that is not really what goes down. So is that my delusional perspective of reality? Or is that just a complete misalignment of intentions based on individuals that have variable views when it comes to what they can and can't do for sex? And that's the thing that's also been bothering me. It's like, what is the point? Should I be concerned about it? Should I think about it more? Because this is something that I don't know why I'm so worried about. Because everybody I've talked to has either said one of two things. Sex is amazing and I love it, or sex is underrated and it doesn't really mean that much. And companionship to me has always been my number one goal when it comes to finding a relationship. It's not been sex. It doesn't really matter to me because I don't know anything better, and I bet, and I've told you guys this before, I bet no matter how big it is, I'm probably going to think it's massive because that's all I know. Like, I'm just trying to think, like, what is the point? And this is something that, I always let kind of fall by the wayside thought-wise. Like, I don't really think about, oh my God, I really want to have sex right now. Oh my God, I'm so sexually pent up. Oh my God, I'm so sexually frustrated. I don't really think that way. But I think about all the other people talking about having sex. And then I think to myself, well, why am I not thinking that way? And I'm the same age as these people, or older, or younger. Like, and I'm in the same, like, scope of non-sexuality than all of these people who just talk about it like it's just free-flowing water. So, then I look in on myself and I'm like, am I doing something incorrectly? And it's weird because it's on the basis of maybe, like, self-induced insecurity where I don't actually know if I want to have sex or not, and my indecision's perpetuating me to have a perception that I'm doing something wrong when I'm probably not. But I look at it and I'm like, should I just be, and I've made jokes about being an incel before, but I'm not. Like, I've had people offer it to me, and it's not like it would be that great. It wouldn't be companionship, which is why I've usually declined. But, I think about the scope of everything, and I think about, like, what would it consist of that I'd want in a relationship, and what do I want when it comes to sex? Because maybe I'm, like, the most kinky individual ever, and I think I've talked about this before. Maybe I'm, like, super kinky and I don't know it, but I don't think I really am. And then I'm online, and I'm seeing people talk about all these kinks, and it's not to say I'm kink shaming, but it's like, I'm sitting here going, like, I have no idea what anybody's talking about anymore. I remember when I was on the internet in, like, 2005, and yeah, sure, this kind of stuff existed, but it was a little bit more out of scope. Like, on YouTube, most of the time, 2005 YouTube, it was not you just talking about your sexual experiences. But now there's an entire market for that online, and also there's an entire market for every single website having, you to have the ability to market yourself through things like OnlyFans or other means of transaction for money for watching somebody fornicate or do other sexual acts, which sounds like harlotry to me, but I could be wrong. But, I've been thinking about this because it's kind of bothersome, and it's kind of been playing on my mind a lot, and I don't really have a solution for the matter, and it's not, again, to, like, belittle other people from my own impaired perspective of my sexual antics and endeavors and my insecurities about my sexuality, or about my perspective on when I should have sex or not. And it's really weird because usually I don't think about it. I don't really think about how I want sex. In fact, I never really think about how I want sex. I always think about how I should want sex. At this point, in this surrounding, in this entire world, where I'm surrounded by hypersexuality and all these individuals, and, having people offer it, and having people, give me the constant opportunities for it, and being surrounded, and also being in this age range where I should want it. I think about why don't I want it? And why should I, like, refrain from having it? Like, what's keeping me? And I could say, oh, I don't want an unwanted pregnancy, which is a very legitimate concern. Or, oh, I don't want to, not have a really, well-fortified relationship without sex. or I don't want to belittle myself or demean myself, and maybe I'd feel that way if I had sex. I think about all of these things. Or it's like, oh, I don't want to get cheated on and then have sex with a cheater because that would probably ruin my soul, because that almost did happen. To be fair, I'm pretty sure my ex was cheating the entire time, and I know I use him as an example, but this is just another thing that's made me really reflect on my sexual encounters and endeavors. It's like, I don't want to be with a non-committal individual doing something that requires some level of commitment. Like, I think about, like, having sex, and I think about, like, maybe if I was with my ex for longer, we would have had sex. And that would have been such a disappointment if I'd found out that he was cheating on me the whole time, or trying to cheat on me the whole time, because I don't know if he was successful. But, like, and then I look back on it and I think to myself, what would have happened if I did? And then I look in on myself and, I think, like, oh my God, I feel used. Like, that maybe that's it. It's an insecurity and concern about feeling used. But, then at the same time, I always make all these jokes about having sex, and I always am willing to throw the questions out there and just ask questions about it and make commentary on it, even though I have very little I know what I'm talking about when it comes to it. So, I don't know. It's just been bothering me lately, and I can't tell again. I can't quite tell if I actually care about it, because I think about it and how I should care about it, and that's what's making me care. But when I look at the actual act itself, I'm like, it wouldn't really mean anything unless I were actually in a committed relationship, which I'm not, and I'm not endeavoring to, because that's a big waste of my time right now. So it's kind of like an obsolete factoid. But again, this has been so bothersome in my mind, along with a series of other variables, but bothersome enough in my mind to where I'm actually talking about it openly for hundreds of thousands to millions of people to see on the internet in the wake of a camera. So obviously, it's played on my mind enough to where I'm kind of questioning reality a little bit, or the intentions that I personally have more than the intentions of everybody else. It really doesn't have to do with the perspective of other individuals that surround me, the hypersexuality of the internet, or the openness and the sexuality that surrounds me in my real life. It has to do with me and my perspective of sexuality and what it consists of, and what the point of any of it is when it's not in a companion-oriented setting. And that's just something that's been playing on my mind a little bit lately. I don't really have a ton to talk about pertaining to it, but again, sometimes I just want to talk about my pondering thoughts and the things that have bothered my mind, and there are other things like work, all the nightmares at work that have really been bothering my mind, the horrible, like, night terrors that I've been having lately, whatever crap. But, like, this is something that's been playing on my mind lackadaisically for years now. Literal years. And, I don't really think about it that much. I let it brush itself aside because, again, like, I'm not that inclined to have sex. It's kind of boring sounding, or it sounds like a lot of work. Every time I think about it, actually, I think it's a lot of work, more than anything else. But then at the same time, I'm bothered enough to talk about it and think about it, and, like, think about how I'm not having it. So, I don't know. It's just something I've been thinking about lately, and I figured I would just yap about it and see how I felt. But do I feel any different? Not really. Have I discovered anything? No. It's just been rambling thoughts, really. But it's just been in my mind, so it's interesting enough. The hypersexuality of the internet, is it just delusion and perceived sexuality? Or is it more the basis of actually, like, a legitimate concern for the exposure that people are having on the internet in regards to sexual encounters and endeavors? And, dating apps are more popular than ever. Like, I don't know. And then, like, does it actually scope well with the real world? Because when I'm in the real world, this is not as common. This is by no means as common. And in the restaurant industry, to be fair, it's more so common just because everybody's, like, it's the restaurant industry. It's, like, way more wild. But again, I'm literally just spitballing, and I guess that's the word of the week because I've been using it in every video. But, like, anyways, that's just something I've been thinking about lately. So I figure I'll just stop. And that was the video, and blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, tell me what you think in the comments below. Is this not a weird perception to have? Am I in the wrong for thinking of... And I don't want to think of other people negatively like this. I'm more looking in on myself, thinking, like, I feel like there's something wrong with me, or that maybe I'm just delusional, and that is why my perspective is what it is, and my encounters have been so not what they are. You know what I mean? But anyways, that was the video. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Like, I don't really know what I would expect to hear from anybody else, because again, this is my own perspective of reality, but I do want to know, like, am I not delusional in regards to my perception of this kind of stuff? Because actually, it's quite bothersome in my mind at the moment. So yeah, anyways, that was the video. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. I hope you all enjoyed, and tell me what you think in the comments below of my weird cognitive ramblings, and yeah, I will see you next time. Slater.